Welcome to the Serpent's Path conversations. Conversations about transformation, about life, about epiphany moments, and about mindfulness. I'm delighted to Kevin to join this conversation today with me. Thank you, Kevin, for joining.
Well, it's great to be here. Gosha, thank you. I'm really excited too. I'm delighted to be here.
So Kevin is my colleague from the Compassionate Inquiry psychotherapeutic approach created by Gabor Mate, and Kevin is a facilitator and CI circus facilitator and CI practitioner and co-creator, co-educator, educator, musician. What else? What else you would add, Kevin?
Um,
A father.
Father, absolutely. I think a seeker, Gosha, a lover of words, lover of people, a lover of life. Uh, and I mean this with humility and tenderness, but I really enjoy being me. And I don't know that I always would have said that.
Yeah. How
So,
did you get to that a very mindful way of presenting yourself? What was the journey?
that journey of presenting myself in that mindful way, Gosha, I was in India last November and I went to do a charity walk for an organization called Action Cancer here in the north of Ireland. And there were 14 of us and we raised lots of money. And then we went to the Himalayas we went to the Himalayas with the group for 10 days. And then I stayed on in India by myself for another 14 days or something, 3 weeks. And whilst I was there, we just walked a lot, drank a lot of tea. I did some meditations in the morning on the Himalayas. Triund, we were on Triund. And when I came back, someone asked me, "Hey, what did you learn? What did you learn about yourself whilst you were in India?" And that made me think about what did I learn about myself when I was in India. And what I learned about myself was that I really enjoy being quiet. I enjoy being by myself. I enjoy gentleness and softness and compassion. I enjoy the deeper side of life. And I'm sure we'll get into those sorts of conversations. Yeah, I enjoy contemplation. And where I grew up, none of those things were okay to be. So it wasn't okay to be quiet. It wasn't okay to be gentle. It wasn't okay to be tender. It wasn't safe to be any of those things. If you were those things, you got squashed. It was dangerous. It was dangerous to be those things. So I learned quite young to be loud and extrovert, and I learned how to take lots of drugs and party a lot and move towards a very noisy. I was always very respectful of other people, but I could see that I was very activated and noisy and loud. And in India, what I realized was that all of that noise, all of that loudness was just a shield for the very quiet version of me to hide behind. So the question, how do I introduce myself in such a mindful way, is that I think I finally found my way back to myself. And what I am is quiet. I mean, I love to laugh and I love to have fun and I love to joke and but essentially, I just like to be quiet. And I've worked through that shame and fear of being the quiet, contemplative, searching for big answers. Yeah, I've worked through the shame and the fear of being that and decided that I can't really be anything else but who I am. And that's how I've come to introduce myself in that mindful way, by just being accepting of the person that I am. And hey, I'm sure there's lots of people that aren't going to like that, and they're just going to have to deal with that. And if they want to be near me, they can, and if they don't have to. I have no expectation of them, or no demands of other people. So that's how I got to introduce myself in that mindful way.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're
That's
welcome.
beautiful. Thank you. You've touched upon a little bit about my next question would be, how was it for you growing up in Northern Ireland or Ireland in 70s? And again, I was listening to your interview on the gifts of trauma, and some parts what you mentioned really resonated with me because I was born by C-section. So I was pushed out to the world and then left for a few days without anyone around. So this quiet child that gave up on everything just when it entered this world kind of resonated with what just you. And again, for me, growing up in 80s in Poland, going through these big changes, political, socio-political changes, obviously it wasn't as horrible, as dramatic, I guess. It was dramatic, but I was growing up on the countryside, and it was very different to you're brought up in the area where you grew up with all this violence on the streets. But I know you mentioned something which really touched me. It was, I could hide myself so well that I was delighted to look after. It just made me feel very sad that we had to do that in order to survive. So can you explain? And I just, that touches, you already touched upon this, adaptation and addiction and this attachment that is related to that.
Yeah. I think the idea of being a delightful child. Funny, I was with some friends this week, and the meaning of my name, the name Kevin, part of the meaning is beloved birth.
Interesting.
Part of my name means beloved birth, and I think, a delightful child, a child that was easy to look after and easy to take care of, and that's, yeah, maybe some by nature and some by environment, that I learned that there wasn't
Mm,
much point in asking for much, because there wasn't much to get.
yeah.
So yeah, I learned to be quiet and easy to take care of. And I also had two sisters at that time. I had a third later on. So there was one boy and three girls in the family. So as the
Hmm.
only boy, you kind of just learn to take care of yourself and do your own thing and stay out of the way and not get involved in sister disputes.
Mm.
Yeah, so I was quiet and timid and lovable as a child. And then I learned that when I went into the outside world, those things weren't okay. So I learned to be fast and noisy and funny and the leader of chaos.
Leader of chaos.
Yeah, I think I maybe was the epicenter of the chaos in mine and some other people's lives. Uh, and so growing up in those 70s and 80s in the north of Ireland, we were all traumatized. Every single person. Whether directly or indirectly, but you knew it was dangerous to be in certain spaces, in certain places. yeah, it was just a dangerous place to be. Always on guard, always on the lookout. Just walking down the wrong street, the wrong direction could get you in trouble very, very quickly. Uh,
So there's a lot of fear there as well.
yeah, gosh, it's an interesting thing too, because speaking to my colleagues, there was a lot of fear, but at the time, it wasn't known. There was a lot of fear, but it was normalized. We just it was just how it was. It was just how it was. That was just how things were, and you just had to get on with it. It's so looking back, I can see that I was responding to fear and reacting to fear and living in fear. But at the time, it didn't really feel like that. At the time, it just felt like this place is batshit crazy, and we're just part of it, and that's just how it was. It's just how it was. But it's not normal. When I look back now, it's not a normal experience to have. It's not normal to be afraid that a pub or a disco that you're in might explode, at any minute. And even to laugh at that, I'm not laughing at the situation. I'm laughing at the absurdity of just how we
Absolutely, yes,
normalize,
absolutely.
how we normalize things. And we had a militarized police force who were brutal. So there was always the risk of being stopped by police or stopped by soldiers when we were a little bit older. Kids, like we're kids 17 and 18, and some of us had passed our driving tests and some had cars, and you would be out doing the things that young people do, going for takeaway food or going to discos or pubs, and always at the risk of running into police or soldiers who were dangerous. And we just navigated that. You navigated that as best you could, and lots of alcohol helped.
Yeah.
Lots of smoking cannabis helped. Lots of taking other recreational drugs helped navigate those situations.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thank you. Absolutely. Can you speak more about this, like early childhood adaptations, like this survival mode and disassociation that we are, subconsciously need to adapt to this very chaotic environment, let's say, right?
yeah, yeah, sure. And I mean, I'll try to speak about it personally because that's probably the best. I mean, I could speak
Yeah,
about it
yeah, yeah.
academically through the studies that I've
No,
studied,
it's
but
through your story. Academically, we both know, and many people knows, but
yeah,
it's differently when we speak about our own experience, how this affected us really, and like why we did that, and what this, you know, what does that do or did for you at that time, and you know,
yeah. Well, I knew that you had to be street smart. I knew that I had to be street smart. I knew that I learned very quickly that I wasn't very interested in violence. In fact, I wasn't interested in violence at all. I wasn't interested in criminality. I wasn't interested in hurting people. I wasn't interested in separation or segregation. I wasn't interested in sectarianism. I wasn't interested in fighting. So I had to learn very quickly how to adapt and become a mediator, a great talker, and I think that was one of my finest adaptive behaviors because that has stood by me for the rest of my life, and also got in my way. As these things do, they have their polarization where it can be a
yeah,
skill
the
or a
positive and
hindrance.
negative attributes.
Absolutely. I think I also learned growing up how to not upset people. And quite often that works across a number of fields, in the family and in friends groups and in careers and jobs and relationships. But of course, when you work really hard to not upset other people, then it's pretty much guaranteed that you will be denying and abandoning yourself. And I did a lot of that. I did a lot of denying and abandoning myself because I didn't want to upset people. It wasn't safe to be near people who were upset. and that's still a great skill of mine, is to be the mediator, to smooth things over, to bring peace into situations where there may be chaos or aggression. So I really like that skill, but I denied myself a lot growing up. That was a great adaptation, to deny myself, abandon myself, to isolate myself. I moved a lot. I ran away a lot, and that was from friends, relationships,
Yeah.
different places. I lived in many different places, and always trying to run away from essentially myself. And I think it's John Kabat-Zinn. His book is on my shelf there. Wherever you go, there you are. And I kept going to all these places and finding out, oh shit, I'm here as well. This stuff that I'm carrying is here too. This is retrospectively, looking back. I didn't know that at the time, but yeah, trying to live through and with those adaptations and coping with fear and shame through people pleasing, denying yourself. And that becomes exhausting. That becomes really tiring.
Yeah, we lose lots of energy for that, don't we?
And I used a lot of energy. Luckily, I had a lot of energy. We spoke earlier about ADHD, and I don't have a diagnosis of ADHD, but I am 100% certain that I live with ADHD. Like with, the more people I work with and the more I read about ADHD, I can just tick the boxes. Like, yep, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me. I do that. I do this. I do that. I do this. And as Gabor talks about, that ADHD, just that being alert all the time, being
Hypervigilance.
hypervigilant, hyperactive. That was me for a long, 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 long time, because I had to be. You live in a war zone.
Yeah,
you got to be hyperactive and hyper. What was the other word you used?
hypervigilant.
Hypervigilant. That's the one. Yeah. So to be hypervigilant was essential.
Survival.
Yeah. And you hear, interestingly, just reading in the north of Ireland here, our ADHD and autism rates are 3 times that of the rest of the UK, and 3 times that of the Republic of Ireland.
Oh, interesting.
So
Okay.
yeah, so it's not the water, it's not the food, it's not the weather, it's not
Well, I will
any
tell
of
you
those
what
things.
else is contributing to it. It's also religion, because we've been brought up in the Catholic countries, and back then
Absolutely,
it was
absolutely.
I would put the religion first before the communistic or any other regimes. This is probably worse because it's such embedded in our values and the way we've been
Yeah.
brought up. And
Yeah, but that wouldn't stand true. Gosh, I agree with you, but it wouldn't stand true for the difference between ADHD and autism rates in the north of Ireland and the south of Ireland, because they're both Catholic countries.
that's
So
right,
there
yeah. So
was
the
there was something
differentiation,
else,
yeah, it's
and
definitely the violence.
it's without a shadow of a doubt, and maybe not even violence to some degree, but also the threat of violence, which is
Yeah,
terrorism. So there didn't have to be violence to be absolutely petrified of the
yeah,
threat of violence. So again, being hyper vigilant
yeah.
didn't always mean there would be violence, but there was
No, but you're
always,
not constant
always,
alert. You're alerted all the time, basically. So you have to be like,
yeah, there was always, always, always the possibility of
yeah,
violence and the
yeah,
possibility of mayhem and murder. And that just keeps a nervous system buzzing all the time, hyper vigilant all the time.
absolutely.
And yeah, when I look back through my life, can I tell a little story?
Of course.
Gosh, I went to do the presence process with Michael Brown 5 years ago. Not went to do it with him, went to do the book, do the process. And at the start of the book, Michael Brown invites you to not use drugs or alcohol
Yeah.
for the 10 weeks of the
Yeah, you have to be
process.
super clean to do that, which is
Yeah.
already a hard start.
Yeah. So at that stage, so I was 45 at that stage, and Michael Brown asks you to, not use drugs or alcohol. And by that stage, drugs weren't a problem. But I thought to myself, wow, 10 weeks with no alcohol. When was the last time in my life that I had 10 weeks with no alcohol? And gosh, yeah, honestly, I don't think I had 10 weeks of no alcohol since I started drinking alcohol when I was 14 or 15. Uh, Maybe 1 week with no alcohol. Maybe I've been sick somewhere. I'm a man. I've never been pregnant. I've never, so I had no reason not to drink alcohol. And I couldn't remember a 10 week, not even 10, I couldn't remember 2 weeks
Yeah.
in my life from I was
Yeah.
15 until I was 45
Mm-hmm.
with no alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided, yeah, I'm going to try the presence process with no alcohol. And that was 5 years ago, and I've never drank since. I've never used alcohol since then.
Wow.
It
Wow.
just look, yeah,
Just after that process, you never ever came back to even one glass of wine at the dinner or small beer.
never,
That's
never
impressive.
ever, never ever. Well, of course, it is, but again, as I reflect on that, the greatest learning that I had about giving up alcohol was that I didn't really like it in the first place. So the
Yeah, it was
alcohol,
serving its function, and then you
absolutely.
kind of process that function within whatever 10 weeks is it that
Yeah.
process? Yeah. Wow.
And using alcohol to help with that high vigilance in our nervous system, using alcohol to help with fear, using alcohol to help with shame, using alcohol to help with lots of things in social situations, using alcohol to hide the quiet person that I actually was, because I didn't want to be seen as quiet, because that was dangerous. So then when I didn't have to be something that I wasn't, then I didn't really need alcohol to help me through those situations. So it was actually quite easy. You're saying it's impressive, and it is. And I don't want to take anything away from anyone that has struggled to
Yeah.
stop using alcohol. But for
Yeah.
me, it was just like turning off a tap. It was like, nah, no thanks, I'm done.
Yeah.
Because I didn't need to hide who I was. So I didn't need to drink alcohol to hide who I was. So it was actually really easy. The most amazing thing was how easy it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, realizing why did I do that for 30 years? I don't even like being drunk.
Mm.
I mean, I did it often and for a long period of time, but I didn't like it.
Thank you. It's interesting. I'm just, when you're talking, I'm thinking of myself that I never, I actually like alcohol. I like good wine,
Mm-hmm.
not so much spirits anymore. I can live without, but sometimes I do like to have a nice glass of wine. But again, with me, I just don't do it anymore as well, because it's the other part of it, which was serving its function to kind of calm me down a little bit to a certain degree, to relax my nervous system to a certain degree, to make me feel, you know, included, wanted, validated, seen to a certain degree, because then I kind of started to maybe relax and feel myself a little bit, because otherwise you just walk as this dissociated thing in the world, and you just absorb everything that is being thrown your way. And with alcohol, I've noticed that it was giving me this a little bit of distance, so I could notice things, but I could also feel more as well. I could sense myself a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Uh, Another thing that don't want to spend too long talking about alcohol, but something that I said at the start to you, I really like being me right now, and
Mm-hmm.
something that I noticed when I drank alcohol, I got easily pulled into the experience that
Yeah.
was in front of me. So
Yeah.
I got easily pulled away from myself into the experience, whatever that experience was.
Yeah.
And that was good because I didn't want to be me back then. I didn't like being me. I was
Yeah.
afraid to be me. So anything that pulled me out of myself and into the experience was really good. Whereas these days, I don't want to get pulled out of myself into the experience. All the work that I'm doing is trying to move myself from the experience back into myself. And yeah, there are some psychedelics that, again, I don't use a lot of psychedelics, but I do some occasionally. But what I like about psychedelics is they pull me into my own self, my inner experience, and not out of myself into
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
outer experience, which is the opposite of alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. And with psychedelics or plant medicine, I I think that was this few times where I actually fully met myself, you know, fully met myself in this all this ugly and beautiful and exhausted and tired and sad and full of grief. And that was really something. And from there, you just cannot come back to whatever was before because you experience yourself in such a way that you know exactly that this is how it should be. We should be able to feel all those things and we should be able to handle all those things because we've got this beautiful body that is helping us to handle this miracle of being here on the earth and having this vessel, emotional vessel. So
And you're
yeah.
just making me think. You're making me think. Gosh, yeah, the me that I found when I used psychedelics was, again, that me that I was introducing myself as mindfully at the start. When I used psychedelics, I thought I was going to meet a lot of grief and a lot of sadness and a lot of unprocessed trauma and a lot of that stuff. What I actually met was deep, deep peace and compassion and love and awe. Just absolute wonder at the world and beyond. What is beyond the world. That's what I met. I met that truth in myself. So I didn't, and I still, I was in Bolivia last month and I was using a psychedelic, and beforehand, my normal process beforehand is to share that I'm really afraid of meeting lots of fear. I'm really afraid of meeting lots of sadness. I'm going to take this psychedelic and I'm just going to cry for 6 hours. And I always have that fear. I always have that fear when I'm going to do a psychedelic. And it never happens
So
anytime I do the
universe,
psychedelic.
universe is listening to you. It's like he's not
Yeah.
ready. Let's not traumatize him.
Or Garcia, and I hear that maybe I'm not ready to meet that fear, or maybe that fear isn't my truth. Maybe that I see it differently. I see it what psychedelics is showing me is the truth of what I actually am, and it's not fear, and it's not trauma, and it's not adaptation. It's not bondage. What it is, the truth of what I actually am is liberation and love and compassion and joy and freedom and expression. And it seems to me that psychedelics just keep saying to me, this is what you actually are. Meet that. Meet what you actually are. So I don't know that it's that psychedelics is saying I'm not ready. I think psychedelics is saying, here's your truth.
No, I was joking. I was joking. It's I
No,
I
I
had
hear you.
both
I hear you.
I had both sort of experiences that, one time I had to meet that fear and listen to that voice and actually see why to be kind of giving me on that plate in my face, what am I afraid of, which is nothing to be afraid of. But you still need to go through that, pain of that fear. And then next is just the pure love, unconditional love that I never experienced in my life. I mean, I probably did, but through all these adaptations and, suppressing everything, you just don't know how that feels anymore. And I think this is that beautiful reconnection with this unconditional love that lives within you and is just here all the time. We just cannot connect to that vibrationally because we are being pulled to the different directions because of the energies that surrounding us. So you don't stay for too long in that blissful moment of unconditional love, this realm of unconditional love. Okay, well, we kind of like smoothly moved to the sort of subject I want to talk about, which is mindfulness and meditation and spirituality, which is what we love and what we live by.
My favorite topic.
Your favorite topic. So, can you explain to all of us, to me, what is spirituality for you? Although you already said quite a lot about it, but what else is there that you would like to share? Like, where
Gosh, again, growing up where I grew up, I can remember being very, very young. And well, some of my earliest memories are of dreams. I don't say this a lot, actually. Gosh, yeah, but I'm about to say it now. Some of my earliest memories are of dreams from before I was born, which is, I get it. That's a weird thing to say. I
no,
totally get it. Yeah.
I love that. Tell me more.
So, yeah, I can remember being in the house that we lived in before I was 5. So I was younger than 5, and having these dreams of being in space, as in outer space, but I wasn't there. I was the outer space. So, and so being aware of space, but there was no me there to be aware. There was just an awareness that I was. And that was really frightening for a child, really scary. And as I look back on that, I am pretty certain that they were dreams of before I was born, before I was here. So I had that at a very early age. And then I was always fascinated by religion, but it's, always fascinated and repulsed or repelled at the same time, because like what are these people seeing this religious stuff? Like, what are they getting from this? Because I'm not getting what they're getting, but they're getting something. Uh, and as we've mentioned, I knew that I didn't align with Catholicism or Christianity, or I knew it, like, just the religion that I was being taught, it was shrouded in guilt and shrouded in fear and shrouded in shame, and particularly where I was from, religion was shrouded in violence and
Yeah,
separation and segregation and
yeah.
sectarianism. But still, I had this fascination of, what is this all about?
Hmm.
What's going on here? And then I don't know how, but I kind of discovered Buddhism, meditation, pretty early in my life. And my favorite topic around spirituality is what is beyond this physical realm. What is, or what is the reality of this physical realm? What is it that makes this
Hmm.
realm? And so what is spirituality to me? Spirituality is firstly a methodology that helps us understand what is the nature of our reality, what is the truth of our reality, what
Hmm.
are we really. And secondly, that has to be very closely married with, what is it like to be us, physical human beings, bodies, looking outside and seeing trees and grass. So if I'd be very conscious that my spiritual philosophy or spiritual teachings should not separate me from my body, and my body should not separate me from my spirituality. So spirituality for me is a way to be at ease and peaceful living in the body that I'm in,
Hmm.
because I know that the body that I'm in isn't what it seems. It isn't the truth of what I actually am.
Yeah,
But that doesn't deny that this is what I am. And
yeah.
that's the paradox for me with spirituality. Uh, Funny, I was reading a little bit of Jack Kornfield, and he was talking about the sixth principle of Buddhist psychology is that we both have a universal and a personal realm or dimension, and one should not separate us from the other. So my spirituality for me is something that helps me be at peace living in this world with my relationships and my struggles
Mm-hmm.
and my stresses and my quirks and my eccentricities and my neuroses, and my spirituality helps me be at peace with all of those. That's what spirituality is for me. It's something that helps me live a life that is peaceful. That's the main thing for me. It's peaceful. And even when things are turbulent, that I can still maintain a certain level of peace and equanimity. That's what spirituality is to me.
Lovely. Thank you.
You're
It's
welcome.
a beautiful definition. And while you were talking about you having those dreams that you're this space, it just kind of, it's just, that's what it is. We are, when we are not in a human body, that's what I believe in, right? We are not in this, we are just this energy, right? We are just this energy. So our mind wants to materialize everything. So it's visually, so you can kind of like describe this, like while you're looking at it. But actually what we are truly really is this bubble of energy. So when you're saying about experiencing yourself of being, you don't see yourself as you know yourself, this Kevin in this body. It's this bubble of energy, and that's what we are. But as you also said, there's this realms that is these energetic fields which are only belong to us personally. They are very unique to you. No one else generate the same sort of crazy energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this universal energy that we all live in by as well, that it goes through you and through me, and we all sharing it. Doesn't matter how far we are.
Can I share something with you, Gosia, that I was thinking about? In this is maybe a little bit more insight into the how my mind likes to think about things, and I'll share a little bit of something. And if it sounds crazy, you're welcome to edit it out. So I was in bed last night, and I'd read a little bit of the book I was reading by Jack Kornfield, and I was thinking, does everything contain nothing, or does nothing contain everything? So let me explain that a little bit. Uh, so when we think of everything that you know, that you experience, that you sense, that you think, think of everything. So when I look around this room, I see my guitar and some plants and a building, and I see a blue sky. And if we think of biology and cosmology, if we think of spirituality, if we think of medicine, if we think of time, if we think of matter, if we think of the sea, if we think of tomatoes and baked beans, and if we think of the past and the future, if we think of the
Yeah.
present, if we think of our parents, our relatives, our ancestors, if we think of all the experiences that we had, if we think of the experience that you and I had in Ireland a few years ago, we met and chatted. If we think about any experiences that are about to happen in the future, if we consider cars and motorways and clouds, and if we consider movies and music and literature and art, if we consider birds and bees and dinosaurs, and if we consider the wind and the rain and snow, uh, if I consider my socks and my body and my thoughts and the words that are happening here, if we consider how I can see you right now and you can see me, if we think of
Mhm.
everything, what is that everything in? Because for something to be something,
Mhm.
we are defining it as not. something else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for you to be you, there has to be other than you. For me to be me, there has to be other than me. For my guitar to be my
Yeah.
guitar,
We have
there
to
has to be other.
differentiate and label something in a way
We have to,
that makes
we have to,
sense to
yeah,
us.
yeah, we have to differentiate. So my guitar is my guitar because it is not my computer
Yeah.
or my table or my record player or my plant. Yeah. And the same for you. If a thought is a thought is a thought because we're differentiating it from something else.
Mm-hmm.
So if we take all of those things that we're differentiating as
Mm-hmm.
other, they're all different things. We're
Mm-hmm.
saying, what is it that contains them? What is
Mm-hmm.
it that's left after we take everything? So some people would say that nothing is left. If you take everything
Mm-hmm.
that has ever been known or will be known or has been experienced, if we take it all, take everything, then nothing is left.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that nothing? What is the nothing that sits outside of everything? So what we're then saying
But
is that nothing.
that's very much of a mind trying to figure it out, the nothingness and the fullness of something, because we have to to put some boundaries, and everything needs to have edge and some shape or color or whatever. So it has to be, this is how we operate. But in the other realms outside of our experience in the body, nothing has any shape or any color or anything. It is. It's just is, right?
And
So
we
not
believe
outside of nothing, outside of everything is I. It's it's
exactly,
right. Yeah.
exactly. And I love that sense of spirituality because for my mind to be my mind, again, my mind wants to define it as having a limitation, something that's it's
So
defining itself as
boundary
other
needs to,
than
yeah,
the
yeah,
boundary.
exactly.
Yeah. So then when we gather all of that, all of those things, all of the minds, what is left? That nothing is left. And Buddhists might call that emptiness, and non-dualists might call that consciousness, Brahman, whatever we might say, God, whatever we might say. Uh, and when we can then understand that all of those things that are everything, all of those minds and mobile phones and guitars and baked beans and tomatoes and trees and all of that, clouds and thoughts and time and future and past, uh, all of those things come and go. They're all transitory. They're all non-permanent. And where do they come from? And where do they go?
I
So
became very philosophical.
yeah, it
It's
is
just
very
a,
philosophical.
it's just a creation of our mind, and to accept that, because it's just we can't live differently unless
I,
yeah.
I get that, Gosha. I get that, but I think it's more than a creation of our mind because our mind can't create beyond itself. Once our mind bumps up against its own edges, what's left? And for me, that's when we move from the philosophical into the physical. For me, that acknowledgement that all of these things, all of these everythings, they're all made from the same thing. They all come from the same thing and go to the same thing. So it's all the same. We're not separate from anything, and it's all contained within that one thing, that one nothingness, that one consciousness. And for me, when I drop from my head, and I know this is a very academic conversation, when I drop from my head around that and the philosophical around that into my body, that allows me to go, so what's the point of worrying? What's the point
Exactly.
of what's the point of freaking out about things? What's the point of being afraid? What's the point of getting upset? What's the point of me, mine, this is mine, defining myself and my ownership of this thing and ownership of this piece of land and ownership of whatever? What's the point of that? That's all pointless. And it really allows me to soften into this experience that I'm having as a person and go, wow, this is pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome to walk about looking at all these things
It's like,
going,
oh, actually, I don't have to
oh,
control that. I can
I
just
don't have to exactly. I don't have to control that. I don't have to manage that. I don't have to be in charge of it. I have no idea what's going to happen with it. I have no idea if I'm going to be alive tomorrow or I'm going to return to the nothingness, you know. Yeah, it really allows me to just soften into the experience. And that's why I like having those philosophical trains of thought. I only like them if they bring me some peace or some what's the point of that philosophical mind wandering is to allow me
Mm-hmm.
to have peace in my own skin,
Mm-hmm.
to allow me to be at ease that I'm not in charge of any of this shit.
Actually,
I
no,
have
yeah, we're
no
not.
idea. I have no idea what's going on. I'm not in charge of it and I can relax.
Yes, you said something that's just, I actually wrote it down. You said you learn mindfulness, and that is actually bonkers. And you will never be bored in your life. Learn mindfulness, and you're never going to be bored in your life. That makes so much sense, right? Because, it's just by observing the thoughts, you will think like, oh my God, this is so crazy. Like, why do I believe in this shit?
Yeah, and it makes me laugh. You know,
Yeah.
when I've learned mindfulness, I can really see why. When you see some of these great gurus or yogis or people that are that are enlightened beings, Jack Kornfield, I mentioned a few times, we both know him. They're always laughing. I'm like, I'm like, I know why you're laughing now.
Yeah.
I can see it. I can see why you're laughing because it's bonkers.
Because it's
And I sit,
bonkers. It's just,
yeah,
the fact that we believe this
yeah,
creation of mind and how it separates us from ourselves and others just by believing this whatever, it's just silly, isn't it?
yeah. It is bonkers. And anytime I'm experiencing boredom or anything else, I just close my eyes and watch my own thoughts and go that's yeah that's a craziness right there. So yeah, that I did say that and I stand by that.
But it is what it is. This is our experience on the earth. On the other side, this is why we were put into this body, to actually learn that this is serving us in a specific way, that experience. And apparently, I don't know if you believe that or not, but it's been said that being asked to be put in the human body to experience yourself as a human, it's one of the most challenging ways of experiencing yourself in the universe as an energetic being. Because if you think of that, putting all this energy that we create, that we are, into this vessel, it's incredible. It's like putting so much into this one thing. And we have to deal with that. We have to deal with that, all these energies that are just trapped inside of our body.
Yeah. And then maybe it's not now is not the time to talk about Akasha, but then there's also the side of spirituality that says you're not in a body, you just think that you are. That it's just your mind. It's only from the point of view of ego and mind that there is an ego and a mind, because the universe
Doesn't have
doesn't see
that.
doesn't see Kevin Young or Gosia
Yeah.
as a separate
Yeah.
being. It just sees it as another bubble in itself. So it's only from our point of view that we think that we're here. And our non-dual spiritual teachers would say this, but that's not true. That's the illusion. You're not actually what you think that you are. You're not one of the everythings that I just talked about. You're the nothing. You're the nothing that I talked about. So again, I like that train of thought as well. That I think with our compassionate inquiry work as well, Gosia, we have to learn all about ourselves before we can realize that that's not what we are. So we have to know what we're not
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
before
Yeah.
before we can know what we are.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
kind of like unlearning
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Very true. Very true.
And I do apologize before we move on. I do apologize. The last 10 minutes of that conversation got a little bit strange. So my apologies for that.
No, I love that. I love that,
Okay.
just for, even if I will have to cut this out, I love it just for two of us having a banter about it. It's just great.
Okay. Fair enough.
I can tell everybody this 10 minutes, you can skip it. It's a special piece for, you know, contemplators of a life.
Yeah.
um, but that connects us to very, this is kind of, how did you get into a sound healing and sound bath, sound, when
Yeah,
did that
thank you.
happen?
That was maybe just pre-COVID. Gosh, yeah, so maybe 2018, something like that. 2019, 20, yeah. Uh, and I suppose that sort of through, when we start to explore meditation, when we start to explore, I think we're naturally then drawn to Eastern things, Eastern philosophy, Eastern sounds. Certainly I was, if I can speak personally. You're drawn towards when you're studying Tibetan Buddhism, it's not a big bridge to cross to then get interested in Tibetan bowls and Tibetan sounds. And I find myself doing that, and I find myself using some Tibetan bowls within meditation classes. And then being interested in music, I love music, and I'm interested in music and fascinated by music. And I just got really interested in more. It sort of built organically. I started off with 2 or 3 little Tibetan bowls, and then I had 6, and now I've got 10. And then I bought some crystal bowls, and then I've got 2 beautiful paste gongs, and then I bought a shruti box. And they're like some shakers and some rainmakers, uh, and next thing I had this whole collection of sound stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then started, delivering sound healing experiences with just a little bit of meditation rather than larger meditations with just a little bit of sound. So it kind of changed, and I just love making sounds. I love how that frees me, because when I'm delivering a sound bathing experience, it's that beautiful experience again, Gosha, of I sort of disappear. It's not me. It's sound, and it's the vibration that's impacting people. And I love that presence that it allows me, where I sort of disappear.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of grew organically just out of a love of those types of sounds and noises, and yeah. And I know I'm delivering a sound bath tomorrow night for a group of people. I deliver probably 6 or 8 sound bathing experiences a month.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are community groups. Some of them are for the general public, and we'll sell tickets. And some of them are
Mm-hmm.
for older people. Yeah, so it's something I really, really love to do. It's a real joy for me to deliver sound bathing experiences. Yeah, and again, I think just because I can get out of the way, it's not really me. It's not really me, or I have that experience. I have the experience of me disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same as that for me. It's in a sound bathing experience. The same happens for me as that happens in meditations.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of lose myself in it, and it's a really beautiful thing for me. And I joke with people. People are always very grateful when I deliver a sound bathing experience. They're always very thankful, and I get paid for it. And I'm like, guys, I'm having the time of my life up here. I'm really enjoying myself. So it's me that's grateful to them. I'm like, no, I'm grateful to you, because this would look really strange if I came and set all this equipment up, and there was no one else here, just me. So I'm very grateful that I'm allowed to do that, Gosha, and it seems to be something that is really well received by people. The feedback I get is wonderful, and anytime I do a sound bathing experience, it fills up really quickly, and it seems to work. People report back that they have wonderful night's sleep, that their pain goes away,
Yeah.
that they have these really deep experiences. And I'm like, okay, great. Again, that's not me. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I provide the sound, and the people have their experience, and it's a pleasure. It's a real pleasure to be able to do that.
Yeah. I agree. I love it too. I
It's a
love it
wonderful
too.
thing.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And I'm sort of similar. I kind of lose myself. I never have any sort of kind of schedule, like what do I play next, or it just comes really naturally. And sometimes I use more of something else than the other instrument, but
Absolutely.
it's never a sequence that I repeat or something that I think I should be doing or playing
Yeah.
or the sound that should
Gosh,
supposed to be making.
yeah, I couldn't repeat it even if I tried.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I
yeah, that's it.
I could never deliver the same sound bath twice. Even if I tried, it would be
Mm.
impossible.
Beautiful. Yes, it's one of the magical tools that we know for many centuries now, and it wakes up something very deep within us. And yoga, I received sound bath once, and I was like, okay, I want to do this. I want to do this too for others, because it was such an incredible experience that it touches the points of, like, it goes so deep that the points that I'm like, where was I and who am I? I'm this thing. I cannot be this thing all the time. I need to travel through sound to this parts of me which are there, but they cannot be on the surface all the time, which is quite sad. But in the same time, it's there, and you just need this stimulation to kind of touch those very beautiful parts of yourself, isn't it?
I love how you said it's been around for centuries. Something that I really like as well about spirituality. I love this. I love the scientific aspect that we're now introducing into spirituality, and uh, I love how when science proves, and I do that in air quotes, when science proves something that lots of people are like, "This is wonderful." I'm like, yeah, that we like this is how it has been for the last two and a half
Yeah,
thousand or 3,500 years.
yeah.
But now that we've got an MRI or a scanner that shows that during a sound bath someone's heart rate falls or that their respiratory rate changes, or you know
Oh, they
now
actually
now
being
that
healed from serious diseases. It's
absolutely. But we've always been told that by these ancient
absolutely, yeah.
scripture. But now that a
Mhm.
machine can show it, we're like, oh yeah, this is right. This works, and I like to chuckle at that. I heard a funny thing as well. Brian Cox,
Mhm.
and I really like Brian Cox. I really like
Mhm.
watching all his shows about the
Mhm.
cosmos and the universe, and
Mhm.
I love all those shows. But I just heard him. It was maybe 6 weeks ago, and he was saying, I'll not try to imitate him, but he was saying, we're coming to realize that time and space may not be fundamental elements of the universe. And I thought, no shit, Brian, why don't you go read the Upanishads, or why don't you go read some 5,000-year-old scripture where it says time and space are not fundamental elements of the universe? But I'm like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Haven't you read the Dhammapada? Haven't you read the Upanishads? Haven't you read the Bhagavad Gita? Haven't you read any of these things that have been in existence for thousands of years? But I love now how science is catching up with
No, we
these
need
real deep
that. We need
spiritual.
that
We do.
there is this, part of the society and humans that need this type of proof in order
They
to
do.
let go of something and for us to actually finally move on and heal this earth. Otherwise, it's going to take
Yeah.
even longer. So yes, um, if it's used for reasons that if someone needs that proof, then great. For some, you
Wonderful.
just need to believe, and you just believe in it, and it's working magic.
Beautiful thing about sound bathing as well that I often quote, Gosha, is that sound bathing doesn't really care whether you believe in it or not. The vibration of a gong does not care whether you believe that it's working or not. It
No.
will it will do the same for someone who believes in it as someone who doesn't, because the vibration, the sound is the sound. It's like gravity, gravity doesn't care whether you don't believe in it or not. It's
Yeah,
working
you're
whether
receiving it. You're receiving it if you want it or not. You're still receiving it.
Exactly. And I really
Unfortunately,
like that about.
it goes the opposite direction. There's the unwanted energy. We also receiving it, although we don't
Of
want,
course.
right? So
Of course.
that's we need to remember that is everything is a collective trauma, drama, and dharma. Yeah. Great, thank you. We moved to. I've got one more question. Kind of something you've mentioned on our first meeting, because we both doing meditation teacher training course or mindfulness teacher training course with Tara Brach and Jack Kornfield, and you've mentioned something about on our first meeting. You said something interesting, which I also noticed. I've noticed when we joined that group of people, this training, that this is a very different space to when I'm normally at, even different to our compassionate inquiry space. Like there's so much openness and so much welcomeness, if there's a word, that I just felt like home. I finally felt like people expressing themselves in a way that I feel like I belong here and I don't have to worry about not being accepted or seen. And you said something that you feel like you're, as a white man, white privileged man, you feel privileged to be in that space. And if you say or do something that, and I can't repeat your words because you say it much more beautifully, but you said something like, if I say something that will hurt you, or you, you kind of feel uncomfortable with that, please tell me, please let me know. And I found that really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I like to read a lot, especially at the moment, Gosha, around race and privilege and racism and exclusion and inclusion and those sorts of things. And I have come to learn through that reading that I am blinded by my own privilege. What I was expressing there was that if my privilege blinds me in a way that hurts you, please tell me, because then I'm going to learn something. Can I tell just a quick example of that, Gosh? Would that be okay?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I met a person recently, and they're a black person of color, and I met them on Zoom, and they said to me, "Hey, Kevin, you're looking very well today," and I said, "Thank you." I said, "I think it's the power of wearing a crisp white shirt." I was wearing a collared shirt, and I don't often wear a collared shirt. I was wearing a crisp white shirt that day, and the person said, "Well, I don't just think a white shirt would do it. I think a black shirt would probably do it too." And my initial reaction was, "Geez, have they just perceived a racial remark from me saying that I'm wearing a white shirt?" My initial
It's
reaction,
very interesting, because when you're sharing this with me, do you know that I feel this tension in my stomach, this shame or whatever that is. I can feel
yeah,
that tension. It's very interesting.
yeah, yeah, thank you.
I've done something
Yeah,
wrong. Is this I've done something wrong,
yeah, yeah. And
feeling.
my response to that, Gosia, was to be angry, to say, "Oh, for goodness sake, don't be so stupid. Why would I be making a racial remark just by saying I'm wearing a white shirt?" I didn't say that to them, of course, because I'm also a people pleaser and didn't want to upset them. But my initial reaction was to be angry that they thought that I was being racist. And then when I sat with that a little bit longer, I thought, geez, it must be really difficult to be a black person in this world when even something as innocuous as talking about it wearing a white shirt can be triggering. It can be offensive. So rather than get angry with them, I would like to understand that that is difficult for that person to hear what I just said. So, and that's a blind spot for me. I am white and I am male and I enjoy being those things. I can't help it. But at least what I can do is to try to use that privilege to see how is it for someone else who isn't white and male and heterosexual, and I'm European, I'm 6'1" tall, I'm healthy, I've got all my limbs and arms and legs and all my eyes and fingers. And how is it for a person that doesn't have all that privilege to live in this world? And I can do a lot of that myself by learning and reading and trying to become aware. But I also like being in spaces that are safe enough that someone can say to me, "Hey, Kev, you said this thing, and that was hurtful to me." And it's maybe coming from a place of your own blinded privilege. And I would love to be in spaces where it's safe enough that someone could say something. So if I say something that might be offensive to a woman, I might say, "Oh, for goodness sake, why would you be afraid to get in a taxi by yourself? Don't be so stupid." That's obviously I'm blinded by my white male privilege that I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be afraid to get in a taxi by myself, but a woman might be. Uh, so if she can say to me, "Hey, Kev, you said that thing and that was pretty hurtful," then I'll grow from that and I'll learn from that. And
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah, I think
yeah, you're
it's
welcome,
this
Gusha.
is because I feel privileged as well. I'm white and I can speak English.
Yeah, yeah.
But for a very long time, I didn't feel privileged because of my, survival, right? Because of how I thought I'm being perceived, right? But on the note of, the society and then the environment we were growing up, we've been pumped in when so many different things and beliefs do not belong to us, but now our subconscious bias or kind of like just showing us what the work needs to be done. And it's not because we want to be this way. It's children cannot differentiate. They don't know the difference between one and another. So how come at some stage we develop that belief about that person of a different language, different background, different ethnic origin or whatever? It's interesting. It's super interesting. Subconscious bias is one of the most fascinating things.
Gusha, can I do we have time can I tell you just a quick anecdote that's coming to my mind as well,
Sure.
just when you say that about children? It was a couple of years ago, and my little nephew's friend was in his house. So this, like, he was 6, little tiny boy. He's white, but little tiny boy, and he was there in his Liverpool football strip, and he looked really great in his Liverpool football strip, and he had his new football boots on. And I was saying to him, "Oh wow, you've got new football boots. They're really cool. Are they?" I can't. I think I said at the time, "Are they Steven Gerrard football boots?" Steven Gerrard was a Liverpool football player. Yeah, and my little friend, he said, "No, no, these are Emil Heskey boots." And Emil Heskey was another Liverpool player.
Mm-hmm.
But Emil Heskey is a black man. He's
Mm-hmm.
about, I think he's about 6'5" tall. He's a huge, big, strong, massive guy. This big, strong guy. And I said to the little boy, I said, "Oh right, I thought you reminded me of Emil Heskey when you wore those boots." And in his innocence, he said, "I couldn't remind you of Emil Heskey." I said, "Why could you not remind me of Emil Heskey?" And he said, "Because he has a different fringe from me."
So cute.
So the only difference that this child saw
Did
between
notice,
himself
yeah.
and a 6'5" muscular
That's
black
right.
man was the fringe.
The French. Yeah,
That's
that's
the only
it.
thing.
That's
And that
it.
my heart just melted with that. I thought, wow,
Yes.
that is so cool that the only thing he sees different is that I've got a little tiny fringe and Emil Heskey doesn't. You know. How beautiful! How beautiful!
That's it. It's just
Yeah,
so exactly when was that shift that suddenly we started to see and differentiate, and it's the when we're going through this puberty moments, 7, 8 year old, when we're starting to see, and well, obviously we're growing up in a certain society that is, the all the knowledge obviously is not only school, it's also
yeah,
home, right? How we bring our children at home, and it's simply you don't know, because I never knew, right? And when I was small, to me, black people only live in Africa. That's it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, we
That's it.
teach. It's taught, isn't it? It's not. It's not. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not natural to be. It's not natural
No.
to be racist. It's not natural to be sexist. It's not natural
No.
to be homophobic. It's
No.
not natural to be xenophobic. It is natural to be compassionate and inclusive and caring and kind. And it's only when we're taught racism and taught homophobia and taught xenophobia and taught sectarianism that we learn it. And we're taught it through many, especially white people. We are taught it through many systematic and controlled environments that yeah, and we take that on board. So, and I want to try and unlearn that stuff that I have learned.
Yeah. Which is super tough. This subconscious bias thinking brain.
Yeah, and it's painful. It's painful sometimes as well. Gosh, yeah, when it gets pointed out to us that that's quite a racist thing that you just said. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. And it's subtle. I'm not talking about you know blatant racism, or where somebody would say something really nasty to someone
Yeah.
or call
Yeah.
them a name.
I
It's a
know.
subtle. It's a
But
subtle,
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 even so,
subtle.
so you
Yeah,
see, I had the experience, and that's ages ago. I don't know, I'll probably say 10 years ago. I was touching my friends with the big afro, and I was always fascinated by the big afro. And I was just touching her hair, so I was like, "Oh, that's so cool!" And I never thought that this might be actually not so cool for the person that is receiving this. My experience of them, just touching their hair in a certain way and making fun of it. Although I didn't mean anything bad, but in the same time, it's just maybe they don't want to be touched that way. It's just, it's this is the hair type. This is how they are, but it doesn't mean that I can just lose myself and start, playing with someone's hair because they are so cool, you know. So things like that, right? Like silly things that we do not consider as a racist behavior. Yeah, interesting. What are you going to play for us today? Are you going to read the poem? Are you going to do both to close the evening
well,
of contemplations?
I have my guitar there. I'm a nervous performer, but I think I'm going to try to sing a song for you.